G'day guys, and it's time again to discuss coronavirus. Certainly an important piece of news going on at this point in time, and unfortunately also an important piece of news we are seeing drop out of the mainstream media cycle for days at a time as it becomes considered to be not commercially viable to continue talking about it, especially if it's things that aren't novel or interesting. We have seen it pop back in the news with the first death in the US and the fact that the death toll has risen above SARS, but then again, as this continues, it will drop out of the news for days at a time, which is a real big shame because there's lots of important information to discuss. So what we're going to be talking about today is the number of people infected and the number of people killed, and why I certainly think these numbers are underrepresentative of the true total. So there's a multitude of reasons I believe that these numbers to be a significant underestimate of what's going on. Now, just off the bat, when you look at a coronavirus live tracker such as the one I have up on screen right now, this only lists the number of confirmed cases. And of course, as we all know, there will be lots of unconfirmed cases at the moment because, simply put, there are people walking around with the coronavirus who don't know they're infected or haven't been tested, and so on and so forth. But this is simply the number of people we know for certain that are infected, and again, this number is actually a lot higher in reality. Additionally, I do want to talk about the fact that China, being a totalitarian dictatorship, may wish to censor the number of infections and deaths in order to reduce panic and also to maintain a strong image on the world stage in a diplomatic sense. China, obviously setting itself up as a superpower, needs to retain that image even in the face of crisis. Now, a piece of news that we've seen circulating around was these leaked screenshots, supposedly leaked screenshots, from China's Tencent news outlet, showing that the number of coronavirus cases and deaths was, for a little while, much higher, at least 5 times higher than the official number, before snapping back apparently to the official number as ratified by the Chinese government. Now, what's been said is that these images have actually been doctored. They're fake news, and that they're fake, and obviously they're not to be taken seriously. But reading from zerohedge.com, quote, however, a Taiwanese netizen who wishes to remain anonymous confirmed to Taiwan News on February 7th, just a few days ago, that he too had witnessed the much higher numbers on the Tencent page at 3:30 a.m. Taipei time, January 26. He said that when he checked the webpage again the next day, he noticed the figures had been substantially lowered. Again, that's just one bit of eyewitness testimony. This man could be lying. He could be just trying to get in the news, trying to stir up trouble, that sort of thing. At this point in time, this dramatically different number is just a case of he said, they said, so we can't really point to it and give it any truth to say it's objective and that sort of thing. Another bit of news that is coming out of China is how China is hiding the true number of coronavirus deaths by listing deaths from coronavirus as dying from pneumonia. Now, as we know, as is the case with coronavirus, often in about 1 of 5 cases you will develop into a severe or critical case, in which case you will get something called viral pneumonia. And this is certainly something that's capable of killing you. And apparently what's going on, according to Zero Hedge, which is getting its information from the Wall Street Journal, is that anyone who dies from this viral pneumonia is not being listed as a death from coronavirus, and instead being listed as dying from pneumonia. So we have Chinese citizens looking up the death toll, trying to see who's died, and they haven't seen their relatives who have recently died in these spring up hospitals and that sort of thing, and their death certificates are instead listing them as dying from pneumonia. And again, this underreporting would tie back into China wanting to reduce the chance of there being mass social panic, and again, to maintain a strong image on the world stage. Less people dying makes your country look stronger, makes your medical system look more sophisticated, more competent, which is a problem that they've had in terms of perception and image after the SARS outbreak, in which they were very slow to respond to that and were poor at maintaining it. And again, we've seen this repeated again, in that they were very slow to respond to this coronavirus outbreak, ignoring it for weeks, taking days to shut down Wuhan, in which apparently 5 million people were able to move around. The airport took 3 days to close. They thoroughly mismanaged the situation, and as such they want to at least maintain the appearance that they have it under control. Some other things to keep in mind when thinking about the fact that this official number of infections and deaths may be lower than the true number is that there's only a finite number of testing kits available to the Chinese and any other nation who's testing for this disease. It is a resource that needs to be produced. How fast can it be produced versus how fast is it being consumed? You may get to a point where you have a hospital full of sick people and you simply run out of testing kits for that day, that week, and so on and so forth, and you're unable to test those people and add them into the total tally. Additionally, even if you have sufficient kits, there's only so much time you have available to use them. We can't just create 26-hour days, 30-hour days, and this sort of thing. And again, if you don't have time to test anyone on that day, when the numbers go up for the day, those infected people may not be included. Whilst we're on the topic of discussing infected people may not behave completely rationally, or it might be said that they're behaving rationally when they partake in certain actions. This, of course, being if they're afraid of their government's reaction to their possible illness, and we've seen apparent footage coming out of China of the police arresting citizens on the street if they have flu-like symptoms and that sort of thing, and if they're worried about being quarantined or potentially cut up for medical study or something, they may actually avoid reporting their illness in order to save themselves some harm, some hassle, and that sort of thing. Additionally, because this novel coronavirus, has symptoms very, very similar to the common flu, the common cold, infected people may just think they have the flu, when in reality they actually have this novel strain of coronavirus. And again, that will result in underreporting of coronavirus numbers. Now, the main reason why this total number of infections, being at this point in time the 11th of February, standing at 43,000, the main reason why this number is not representative of reality is unfortunately due to the nature of the coronavirus, and it's something that I'm repeating in every single video because it's so significant. Coronavirus is capable of being asymptomatic in that you're not showing that you have any disease at all, but still transmissible for up to 2 weeks. This means that there are certainly, without a doubt, and this is absolutely beyond a shadow of a doubt, there are certainly people in this world right now wandering around freely, not thinking they have any kind of infection, illness, ailment whatsoever, who are infected with coronavirus and simply don't know it, and they're spreading it to other people. We're learning that coronavirus can survive on surfaces readily for 4 to 5 days. We're understanding that can be spread even in the most non-physical of contact, in that business meeting in Germany, assuming that, of course, that was just like a handshake and being in the same room together. There was nothing sexual happening or anything of that regard. So yes, the main reason why coronavirus numbers, the official number of confirmed cases, is much lower than in what is occurring in reality, is because there are lots of people walking around who have coronavirus right now and simply don't know it, because it is asymptomatic. It is incubating for this long period, anywhere between 2 to 14 days. Now, when we're armed with this information, this knowledge, this new perspective of the different factors that may concur and amount to a significantly higher true number of infections compared to the official confirmed count, we have to obviously ask ourselves, and it is inevitable that we do, what's the real number? Well, unfortunately, not being any kind of disease expert or anything of that nature, I can't give you an accurate number of how many true cases of coronavirus there are in the world objectively. There are other people making predictions and that sort of thing, and I would advise you go seek out their findings, because of course my amateur view is not something that I want to spread around like it's any kind of objective fact, because the chances are, and the chances are very high, let's say 99.999 repeater, the chances that I'll be wrong are that high. All I can really say is it is certainly true, without a doubt, beyond a shadow of the doubt, that the number of true coronavirus cases worldwide at this period of time, and presumably for the rest of the infection, is significantly higher than the number of confirmed cases. And again, this is mostly down to the fact that coronavirus is asymptomatic for up to 2 weeks, but I don't think we should discount the fact that China may be censoring the number of infections and deaths to both, again, reduce social panic and to maintain a strong image on the world stage. Now, I'm not trying to make this video to scare anyone, or because I have life straws or surgical masks to sell or anything like that. I'm not on commission. I just want to make this video so it's something we can all keep in mind as we watch this infection progress. I know I will certainly be keeping an eye on this sort of thing, and if I have pertinent information, I have several videos worth to make, I will be continuing to release it to you, because again, as I mentioned in the start of the video, coronavirus will periodically drop out of the news for days, potentially up to a week at a time, because nothing novel and new and interesting is happening that the mainstream media considers significant enough to make that investment, because again, they're tied up in a fiscal arrangement because they need money to survive. So every article they write that bombs, well, that's a big problem for them. So again, I would be advising people to turn to alternative media consumers who are not necessarily as motivated by fiscal concerns, because these people will be more likely to provide more continuous updates. So yeah, spread your field of knowledge wide, keep yourself informed with this sort of thing, and remember that the confirmed number of cases that we're seeing, and potentially even the number of deaths, is a lot lower than what it is in reality. Thanks all for sticking around, and have a good one.